The Supreme Court is about to make a decision that could trigger what President Trump is calling an economic disaster for America. And at the center of this battle is something that sounds too good to be true: a promise to send $2,000 checks to over 150 million Americans. But here's what they're not telling you. If the court rules against Trump, the government might have to refund more than $2 trillion in tariffs already collected. And if the court rules in his favor, the plan to actually pay those dividends could add $6 trillion to the national debt. Either way, American taxpayers are about to find out the real cost of Trump's tariff war. Right now, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments on whether Trump exceeded his presidential authority by imposing tariffs on imports from nearly every country in the world. Trump used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law designed for national security emergencies, to justify these sweeping tariffs. But opponents argue this goes way beyond what any president should be allowed to do without Congress. They say Trump is essentially creating a massive new tax system through executive action alone, which violates the Constitution's separation of powers. Trump's response? His threatening economic catastrophe if the court blocks his tariff program. And he's sweetened the deal by promising to use tariff revenue to pay $2,000 dividends to low- and middle-income Americans. This isn't just about trade policy anymore. Trump has turned his tariff program into a direct payment system targeting working-class and middle-class voters, explicitly excluding high earners. It's a populist move designed to make his aggressive trade stance look like it benefits ordinary Americans rather than just punishing foreign governments. But here's where the math falls apart. Tariff revenues collected annually amount to roughly $100 billion, with some projections reaching $300 billion. Meanwhile, sending 2,000 checks to over 150 million Americans earning under $100,000 would cost about $300 billion for just one round. If Trump wants to make this an annual payment, you're looking at $600 billion every year. The tariff revenue simply doesn't exist to cover those costs. Fiscal experts estimate this tariff dividend plan could increase the federal deficit by approximately $6 trillion over 10 years, massively expanding national debt instead of reducing it. And there's another problem. Economists warn that pumping $300 billion into the economy through direct payments could fuel inflation at exactly the wrong time. The economy is already showing signs of slowing. Unemployment is rising. Manufacturing is contracting. The Federal Reserve is trying to carefully manage interest rates. Flooding the system with tariff dividend checks could destabilize everything the Fed is trying to accomplish. Legally, the entire plan rests on whether the Supreme Court rules Trump's tariffs are constitutional in the first place. If the court says no, the administration might be forced to refund the $2 trillion in tariffs already collected, which Trump describes as a national security catastrophe. But even if the court rules in Trump's favor, Congress would still need to approve any direct payment system using tariff revenue. Trump is essentially bypassing congressional authority on taxation and spending, which is constitutionally reserved for the legislative branch. Trump's framing of this Supreme Court challenge reveals his real strategy, as positioning himself as fighting for ordinary Americans against what he calls radical leftists and foreign adversaries trying to undermine U.S. economic sovereignty. The $2,000 tariff dividend promise is designed to rally his base and reshape how voters perceive his trade war. It's not about economic policy. It's about electoral strategy and executive power. The Supreme Court decision will determine whether Trump can continue using tariffs as both a trade weapon and a domestic political tool. But regardless of how the court rules, the economics behind the tariff dividend plan don't add up. American taxpayers are caught in the middle of a constitutional battle with trillions of dollars at stake. What do you think about Trump's tariff dividend plan? Drop your thoughts below, and subscribe for updates on this Supreme Court decision that could reshape American trade policy and economic policy forever.